Hey, I'm Amanda from Trifecta Fitness. We're proud to be Clarksville's new Get Fit headquarters. Trifecta Fitness is a state-of-the-art spin and strength training studio. Our spin studio is truly one of a kind in this area, complete with 20 state-of-the-art live fitness bikes and an incredible sound system. Our strength training is done in small groups of 6 or fewer, and all of our strength and spin classes are scalable for every level of experience. Come see us in the heart of Clarksville, just behind MAPCO at the corner of Old Trenton Road and Wilma Rudolph Boulevard. Call us for more info at 931-542-6265 or download our Trifecta Fitness app for a full list of upcoming classes.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Did you serve in the military? If so, you can obtain a free lifetime pass to more than 2,000 federal recreation sites. These sites are located across more than 400 million acres of public lands, including national parks, wildlife refuges, and forests. The lands host activities to fit any lifestyle: hiking, biking, fishing, camping, and much more. Gold Star families are also eligible for these free lifetime passes. Plus, they cover entrance fees for a driver and all passengers in a car, or up to 3 additional adults at sites that charge per person. Obtaining one is easy. Just go to the National Park Service website, nps.gov, or the National Park Service app.
All right. Welcome back. MisFitNation. We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their story to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the Misfit Nation. If you're a musician or actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share some of your tips with the Misfit Nation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you're a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and share how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you're a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and just share your story with the Misfit Nation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or are embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you're a new listener, welcome to the Misfit Nation. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast apps and also on our YouTube channel at @_Misfit Nation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date with our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show. All right. Welcome back to the Misfit Nation. Our next guest lives with her husband in Taos, Mexico. She has 3 amazing grown children and 3 beautiful grandchildren. She's a lover of art, nature, and gardening. She holds a master's degree in psychology and counseling from Antioch University and has had a private psychotherapy practice for over 50 years. She's recently retired and is now focused on writing. So without further ado, let's welcome Phyllis Leavitt to the Misfit Nation.
Thank you so
Welcome,
much.
Phyllis.
Thank you so much. It's really wonderful to be here with you.
It's awesome to have you here, and it's awesome to be able to connect with people from different backgrounds, get them on the Misfit Nation. That's one of our pride points here, is to get as many different experts as we can to help those in the Misfit Nation who may need a little bit more in their toolbox to help them get through their day or move on to the next thing in life. So it's great to have you.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, Phyllis, like I told you in the pre-show, I'll only give a little blurb about you there. It's not a lot about your life right there. If you want to go back as far as you want to go, tell us a little bit more about you from back then to how we got to where we are. That would be awesome.
Yeah. Well, I became a psychotherapist when I was in my 30s. And before that, I had some trauma of my own in my childhood that I really had actually not remembered and certainly had no way to deal with. And as I began to remember some of the things that happened to me, I ended up going to therapy when I was in my 30s. And it was really a mind blower for me at that time. And I'm probably older than a lot of your listeners, but nobody was talking about psychology and psychotherapy in any of the venues that I grew up in. So when I began to realize through going to therapy that the things that had happened to me in my life actually conditioned the way that I felt about myself, the reaction patterns that I had, the beliefs I had about other people, the expectations I had of myself, that our conditioning has so much to do with how we are coping in the world today. And some of my early conditioning began to come back to me. And I did a lot of work on some of the traumas in my life. And it made me want to become a therapist. And so I went back to school and became a therapist myself. And I've worked with a lot of trauma. I have not worked with vets, but I have certainly worked with a lot of PTSD, with a lot of family abuse, with a lot of societal abuse and neglect, and the different traumas that people have experienced at human hands. And some of the principles of that are the same for many people, regardless of where the trauma came from. And from there, real quickly, I'll just say it was a pretty big aha that came for me to realize that some of what's dysfunctional in our families and some of the ways that people hurt each other and with lasting effects are also happening in what I would call larger family settings. A community is a family setting, a business is a family setting, and a government and a state are all family settings in the sense that they're made up of individuals who, for the most part, continue to play the kinds of roles that they learned to play growing up, or react out of the experiences, both good and bad, that they've had in their lives that may be sort of on automatic. So I began to take the lens of family therapy and individual therapy and apply it to what's going on in our country. And that's what caused me to write the book that I just wrote called America in Therapy. And the whole purpose is to really share the things that I've learned from all my years working with people and families, share what I've learned that could help our country today come back from some of the violent rhetoric and the divisiveness and the hatred and the discrimination and the injustice that we see happening around us. And so that was the whole point of writing the book, was to share what I know that I think could help heal.
That's awesome, and I think that's a great point for our country. We do need to heal. We need to get back to actually talking to each other instead of
exactly
being keyboard commandos. Many people, that's what we like to call them here. They'll stay behind their keyboard and just cause divide between people. They won't talk to people face to face and say, "Hey, look, I believe we should be going this way." Across the table, say the same thing, but in different words. But they ultimately get to that same end point if we just sit and talk to each other. That would
exactly. And I think that's what the best psychotherapy really role models, that people often come because their relationships aren't working, or their parenting isn't happening in a good way, or they're suffering from things that happened to them early in life that they have not been able to get over. And they have nightmares, or they have anxiety, or they have depression, or they have addiction. And many people are still looking like they function very well in society and to those around them when they're really suffering behind closed doors. And I think one of the gifts of good psychotherapy is that it really, two things. If if the issues that a person brings are directly related to their relationship with other people, it really helps people come together exactly the way you just said, to resolve the issues, to talk, to hear, the depth of what's going on in the other person and grow empathy, or at least some understanding that their point of view might not be the only point of view, or their need might not be the only legitimate need in the room. And the other really big gift, of course, of good psychotherapy is that it helps people go down into the formative experiences that have hurt them and repair some of the after effects so that they can feel and function differently in the present. And that's both of those things I would love to see happening for America.
Definitely. Every one of my listeners would as well. They'd love to see it and not have that divide, especially those of us who did go across the pond and fight for what we believe were for our brother and sister to our right and left. But we also fought for the flag that's on our shoulder. To come and see the geopolitical divide in our own country, it hurts a little bit inside when you think about that.
Yeah, because, my feeling, and you can certainly tell me if you disagree, is that war should be a very, very, very last resort, that we should do everything in our power to not resort to violence, but to try to work out our differences peacefully, for many reasons. One reason being that I think many people are aware of, and I'm sure you are, is that there are so many victims of armed conflict that are completely innocent and have nothing to do with it, whose lives are just destroyed, or seriously and very in long term injured. And the recovery process is painful and slow. And for the other big reason, that our ability in war today is to wipe out wipe out life on Earth if we were to use the weapons that we have. And my hope is that we use that as a wake-up call to do everything in our power to resolve our differences in a more peaceful, open-minded way.
Definitely. And every June I take a trip from my home here in Tennessee up to Washington, D.C., and I speak to Congress about that very thing, to fund the State Department, to fund the State Department fully every year, so that, and I tell them I don't want to see another person like me have to write a letter to a mom and say, I'm sorry that we lost your son or your daughter. And that kind of opens their eyes a little more, because they don't see it firsthand unless they served, or unless they lost someone in combat.
Exactly.
They don't see that brightness, that eye. And most of my brothers and sisters that were over there, seen not just our brothers and sisters get killed or maimed or wounded, they seen little kids do it, and their families suffering they go through as well, and that hurts a lot more. But you go there expecting to serve and maybe make that ultimate sacrifice, but you don't go there expecting to see a little kid begging for food, and that little kid stepping on something and killing himself.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you reaped that out of your very difficult experience, and I give great honor to you, and I'm so grateful that you can share it that way, because that's where I come from, and that's why I try to take the lens of psychotherapy and apply it to larger institutions and to our country, because we never advocate that people hurt one another if they have a disagreement, or they can't get along, or they're angry, or they're frightened. We never advocate violence. We always advocate either really try to sit down and work it out, and we advocate, really deep listening skills so that each person has a chance to be heard and their needs honored, and hopefully at least some of them met, and that we really try to teach people to listen to each other the way they want to be heard, which I think is very hard for human beings, because we're so invested in our point of view and what we want to see happen out of any given situation or relationship. But we really try to teach people that, and if none of that works, to separate peacefully and leave each other alone. And I would love to see those principles happen for our country. And I would love to see, I say this all the time, so I'll say it with you as well. I would love to see there be trained mediators in Congress who actually require that people sit down and listen and not walk out and not hurl, violent rhetoric at each other or name call or act disrespectful, but really teach our leaders how to listen, even if they really don't agree, because those are also the role models for our children. Those are the role models for us. They're like the parents of the country. And what they do is imitated. And we see that. We see it all over the country. And it's a very sad state of affairs. And I'll just throw this in and please jump in. This is a mental health issue. When people behave badly toward one another, when they're disrespectful, when they're violent, when they're threatening, when they're diminishing of another person's character or their family or their race or their religion or their gender, this is a sign of ill mental health. It's not an ideological issue. We can have very different religions or very different points of view on, food stamps or whatever, without name calling, without becoming violent. And when we do that, that's a mental health issue. It's not an ideological divide. And I don't know that the average person knows that.
The average Joe and Josephine, and when they see that action or the reaction to that action, they go with the part that they think is the best for them. So if Congressman A is jumping up and down leaving and they think that Congressman is the best thing in the world, they're going to do the same thing that person did. No, they'll stand up in their office and do the same thing, jump up and down and throw this little fit and leave. And then those who feel the other way, who's trying to be calm, cool, and collected and make a point while that's going on, there's another part of the group of people that want to be like that as well. So it's hard to get that glue back together. To do that would be amazing.
It would be amazing. And I think the more people who understand that that is actually what we need to feel safe here, for people's real needs to actually get met by those who are in a position to make policy and law and allocate resources, I think the more people who understand that that's actually what we need to be a functioning country where more people feel safe and more people feel cared for and more people feel a part of, that we can ask that of our legislators. We can ask that of the people in power, and we can vote for that. We can vote for good human relations. And especially when people understand, and this is the lens of psychology that I talk about in my book. When people understand the deleterious and the devastating outcomes for so many people when we don't do that, that maybe we can actually demand that we have that kind of civility and that kind of respect and that kind of commitment to working things out at the highest levels in our country. Because ultimately that is what we're going to need in the world. That is what we're going to need to survive here.
One of the audience, and also a member of the MisFitNation, Colin, jumped in, seeing the America he served in for 25 years being so divided affects him more than any combat situation he's ever been in.
Wow.
It makes him actually lose sleep.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I don't think people know this. And, I can tell you a similar story. I've been a psychotherapist for over 30 years. And I started my practice in 1989, a long time ago. And it was not until the prelude to the 2016 election that I ever had any client come to therapy traumatized by the politics in our country. Exactly what you're saying. People losing sleep, people suffering high levels of anxiety and fear about what was going to happen to America. And so thank you for sharing that, because I have seen the same thing on the other side, in my office, and experienced some of it myself.
Yeah, I think a lot of both that election, 2016, and the 2020 election was driven by the propaganda machine as well. So the media, the big heads on TV, putting out their point of view of things and saying what people meant, even though they may not have meant that on either side, to cause that great divide that has occurred. Tell people
that's right.
If person A gets elected, we're going to go to war immediately. there's no control, or if person B gets elected, this will happen to you, and cause that fear mongering, and that's what sells
Exactly.
stuff. And fear mongering sells, or sensationalism, sensational journalism,
Right.
I think is the word I'm looking for, is what
It's
sells,
totally.
and they fed off that, and they still feed off it today.
It's so true. It's like, I'm so sad sometimes when I look at the news and I just see it's all about, who to show up as being the bad guy and exposing them and blame, and shaming each other and humiliating people, and again feeding that great divide, when what we really, really need, and I can't say this strongly enough. I read an article just the other day on some of the problems that many communities are experiencing with homelessness, for instance, and looking for stronger legislation. Some places have criminalized homelessness. That is just beyond imagination to me. If we're looking at, these are people who are suffering. They have no home. I can't even imagine what it's like to be homeless, or how I would get there. It would just be, it's so painful to even imagine. And children being brought up in a situation like that. And nothing in the article actually addressed the causes of homelessness. Why is there an increase in homelessness? What is happening to people that they can't afford shelter, that they can't take care of their families, and they're living in a tent on the sidewalk? And have we become so heartless that we're not looking at the causes, and that as a collective, we're not feeling some responsibility to amend what's causing it? And I think this is it's just one example of like how we tend to blame our victims. These people need to be incarcerated? Really? I find that just unimaginable. And yes, it's a problem. It is a problem. But and this is why I take the lens of the best psychotherapy, because we look for causes, and we look at how to address the deepest root level of the causes of our dysfunction in our personal lives. And homelessness is one of many, many, many examples of the dysfunction in our national family's life. And certainly the uptick in mass murders is another one.
Yes, and both go back to your point earlier about the mental health crisis in America, or in the world. Really, it's not just America, but mental health has a lot to do with both those situations: homelessness and also mass murders, or mass shootings and such like that. It doesn't, a sane person isn't going to grab a weapon and kill little kids, and if they are, if that person's deemed sane, something's wrong with that. With that doctor who says that, or the defense lawyer or whatever who says that stuff. And I know a lot of people, veterans that got out and made some bad choices when they got out, and they wound up homeless. And there's programs in place now to try to get them back, to try to bring them back and build them up again, build up their morale, build up their self-esteem, build up their self-confidence to get back out in the world and do stuff.
Yeah.
But it takes time. If you don't provide that time to them and think it's going to happen overnight, that they get off the street, or they're going to stop doing the things that caused them to get out there, then you're mistaken as well.
Absolutely. 100%. I don't know if you happen to see it, but I saw a documentary called The Heart of Invictus. Did you happen to see that?
I have not seen that.
I think it's a recent documentary on Netflix, and it was, the Invictus Games were sort of like a special Olympics for veterans, and for people who had multiple amputations or paralysis, and the trauma of severe PTSD. And it was so moving, I can't tell you, because it focused so much on the lives of the veterans and what their injuries and what they had been through and what they had witnessed had done to them. And for many people, the Invictus Games became a way to heal. It became a way to join with other people, to build their bodies and their confidence and their sense of belonging and their sense of validation. It became a way to build all of those things. And so it was beautiful and tragic at the same time, because you saw people suffering with no legs and no arms, or having PTSD so badly they couldn't function with their families anymore. And so it was bittersweet. It was like the tragedy of war and the beauty of when we come together to really help each other and help bring each other back to life. But you can't help seeing, a documentary like that without wishing there was no more war.
Right. And sadly, wars have been around as long as we've been around as humans. There's been some kind of conflict or war. The old saying is, without war, there is no peace. Without peace, there is no war. And those two go hand in hand. And in order to have peace, there had to be something to get you to the peace. It is the old mindset, Sun Tzu, Art of War, or on killing, or on war. The books, you can read any of them, and they all say the same thing. Without peace, there is no war. And without war, there is no peace. Because those who see the others having a good life, or having a peaceful life, or prospering, if you just look at Ukraine right now, Ukraine was moving towards having a democratic life and having everyone have their own lives and building up. And Russia was not liking that. Also, what they do, they came in and tried to destroy them and made up again propaganda why they went in, and we're still there almost 2 years later.
Yeah. Well, I would like to challenge that idea, because, and maybe it's always been like that. Without peace, without war, there's no peace, and without peace, there's no war. But I think there can be peace without war. And I think that we know that in the field of psychology, in human relations, that people can work out their differences without war. And they can be committed to repair of the conflicts and the disagreements and the upset feelings and the hurt feelings without violence. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think we need the lens of psychotherapy on what's going on in our country. We may have always been like that, from time immemorial, from the very first humans that walked the earth. But I don't think we have to continue to be that way.
I agree 100%. I don't think we have to remain that way, but there's still a lot with that mindset that you have to do that. You have to do that until we can change. It might be a generational thing that it'll take a generation to change that mindset, and maybe another generation to keep it in place, so that it'll be beyond both of our lifespans. Hopefully, your grandbabies will be able to see it.
Right.
And my granddogs, maybe they'll do it too. So maybe we'll be able to see they'll be able to see peace, and when we meet them somewhere else, we'll be able to talk about it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And that's actually one of the main motivations for me writing my book. And I had several, obviously, but one of them was that I have grandchildren that I love. And most people have somebody that they love out there that they don't want to see get hurt. And can we build a world? Can we build that in our country where we stop hurting our own citizens and their children? Because they're the fallout. And they will be the next ones to grow up and make policy and figure out how to behave in society. And what can we do to break the cycle of violence? And the best psychotherapy helps break the cycle of violence, whether it's emotional violence, mental violence, sexual, physical, whatever.
Definitely.
And we're not perfect. Yeah, sorry. I was going to say we don't do it perfectly, but we can commit to it. Sorry, go ahead.
I say we're humans. There's no way we're going to be perfect, and people got to understand that as well. We are human. We are not all holy, and we're not going to be able to just walk around and do things perfectly every day. Every day you're going to make a mistake. It's what you do after you make that mistake, and if you shake the person's hand, if you make an upsetting thing, you shake their hand about dinner or lunch or something, and make up to him, and then make things better. Don't just keep making that mistake over and over again.
That's exactly right. We are human, and we're going to make mistakes. We all do. I do, but what we can do is say we're sorry. What we can do is do our best to do it differently next time. And what we can do is really listen to the impact we've had on the person we hurt.
Definitely.
and take it in.
If you actually listen to hear what they're saying instead of just waiting for your chance to talk, listen to them say, "This is what hurt me," or X, Y, Z, and it'll probably affect you more if you listen. It'll affect you more, especially if you're the reason. It'll affect you more and make you make a response that actually helps them to grow and helps you to heal and grow as well without even knowing it.
Oh, 100% true. And when people do that, they feel better. That's the thing that's so interesting. When we reconnect with each other and we feel good and we're at peace and you like me again and I like you again and we can talk, it's the best feeling in the whole world. Hatred and violence and walling people out feels awful.
Yes, and it takes a lot of energy.
Right, totally.
Jake said in the comments again, settle wars with the national sport of the belligerent countries. So if two countries are going at it, make them settle it by doing a national sport instead of doing combat. So
I love it.
As long as a sport they both understand, I guess it'd be awesome.
Yeah, and it's safe. You know, it might get a lot of aggression out of your body, but it's safe, right?
No one's getting shot, hopefully.
Exactly. I love that idea.
And you've written 3 books now, right? I think you have the Road Home series, book 1 and 2, The Light in the Darkness, Into the Fire, and now American Therapy. Is there going to be more in the series of the Road Home as well?
Probably. But I'm most likely going to write a sequel to American Therapy because, you know, just the way the publishing world is, and also like you were saying with people's attention span, there's a lot in American Therapy, a lot to absorb. And I think it ended at a good place. And there's a lot that I didn't include in that book. So, you know, I just feel like helping to inform one another about the best of psychology and the after effects of the worst psychology is just a crying need in our country and really in the world today. Because if armed conflict ultimately, and really, let me just say it this way, if a belief in armed conflict and condoning armed conflict and perpetuating it for its own sake is a sign that our mental health really needs help. We need help to pull back from killing each other, really, from killing each other and making more and bigger weapons to kill more people. If those are mental health issues, then let's address that. Let's help people understand the necessity to do that without blaming anyone, without hating anyone, without attacking anyone, but really trying to help each other.
Definitely, yeah. Don't leave someone down. Help them up. Help a brother and sister up if they're down. Help them up, and don't continually put them down. Say, hey, look, that's not working for you. It's not working for us. Like you said earlier, each thing has its own community, own family. You could be in your own household as a family. You can be in a community, business, or in government. Wherever you sit, if someone is doing something to hurt the whole ebb and flow of stuff, let's call time out and say, hey, look, this is what we need to do better. And this way is not working. Your way is not working. It's hurting us. Let's work together to make a better plan.
Yeah, totally. And if need be, let's look at how you learned that. Let's look at where you might have been hurt and you're repeating that hurt with other people. Because that's one of the things that really good psychotherapy often does, that people come in and they're highly conflictual and they get very combative or argumentative or they wall somebody out or whatever they do that's non-relational. And it really comes from deep hurt in themselves. Maybe their parents behaved that way because that's the way they learned to deal with conflict. Or maybe they were bullied at school or goodness knows what. And when that pain gets addressed inside them, and I can tell you this from over 30 years of experience as a psychotherapist, when that pain gets addressed inside of a person, I have never seen them want to be hurtful to another human being. They feel remorse for the ways they've acted out or the ways that they've unconsciously hurt other human beings, and they want to do it differently. And I've seen that over and over and over again. There's no monster inside a person. We've just learned to do monstrous things. And when we peel back the layers of what's happened to us that's been hurtful, there's a beautiful, loving being in there. And I've never seen it not be true. It's also true that we don't know how to peel back the layers for every person. So there are some people that are still dangerous. They really are, yes. That we don't know how to treat them, and they do need to be separated from society for our safety. But whenever possible, that should be our commitment.
Definitely, and some people's layers are a little more solidified on them, so you got to really peel harder to get the stuff going.
Right.
That's a great point.
Right.
Question from the audience is, where can they buy your book? Is it on Amazon?
Unfortunately, it's not out yet. It's in the hands of my publisher, and it's going to be out in 2024. And I will definitely let you know when it will be available. If you go on my website, which is www.phyllisleavitt.com, if you sign in for my newsletter or the contact me place on my website, there's going to be a pre-order a possibility that's going to come up pretty soon. I'm waiting on the publisher on that. So you can put in for the book, or I can just let you know as soon as it's available. And I'll let you know also when it's available. Yeah.
And the first two books, are they on Amazon, or are they in every bookstore?
They are on Amazon, and they're more autobiographical. They're kind of more my own initial healing journey. So this book, American Therapy, is quite different, but not really unrelated. It's all about us returning to a loving, cooperative, caring, generous, boundaried place in which we're really committed to nonviolent conflict resolution with one another and reconnecting. I love the way you said it, with our brother and sister human beings.
Definitely, and I think that's our goal. We all should have is to just get along, and if you can't get along with people, then move on to the next person. Don't bring someone down because you don't like them.
Exactly.
Learn how to get along with people. You can get along with everybody and then go home and be mad at yourself if you have to, and then fix that and then come back out.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. You're good.
Oh, I was just going to share that, I've worked with so many people over the years, and I've seen so much suffering from mistreatment just in, our homes, because I think our families are suffering, not because we're bad people, but I think our families are suffering. Many parents are suffering. They don't know other ways to handle their children. But in any case, I've seen so much suffering inside ordinary people like you and me. And you don't know, I try to remember this myself when I'm out and about in the world. If somebody's waiting on you and they're kind of grumpy and they're not friendly, we don't know what they've experienced. We don't know what they bring to the table that day. They might have had a horrible encounter with someone, or be suffering from anxiety and depression, or have PTSD from trauma in their own childhood. And it costs nothing to be kind. And it could change that person's day, and it could change how they go home to their family.
100%, 100%, and especially right now, the economic challenges to many families are economically challenged right now. It's not the who's, it's almost everyone's a challenge right now, and having to adjust their lifestyles, and that does affect, especially if you have little kids in the house. That does affect everything within the house, and it's a domino effect. And then the parents, of course, be stressed because they're worried that they're not doing enough for the children, and the children are feeling that stress and they're taking it to school, and it's a domino effect through there. And so we can fix everything. You got to start fixing little things at home in order to fix big things outside.
Yeah. And what could our country be like if we took all those billions of dollars and we invested them in our families? In housing, in education, in medical care, in social services, in food. What could our country be like if we were actually taking care of our families?
I know people are trying. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
It's just getting the whole team together.
That's right. That's right.
That's the hard part. So, Phyllis, this has been a great chat. The audience really enjoyed it. They all been chiming in saying, great chat, great information. Can't wait till the book comes out. Any last words from the audience before we check out of here?
Yeah, I would just say, if you're suffering from anything, look for help. It's an incredible thing. I did years of therapy myself when I was younger, especially, and there was nothing like having a safe place to just let all of what I needed to say come out and be heard and be believed and be affirmed, and then have a response that was helpful to show me another way or help me process through places where I was stuck. So if you're suffering in any way, reach out for help. It's not a sign of weakness. It's not a sign of failure. It's actually a sign of strength and courage. It takes a lot of courage to heal. And we can do that for one another, whether it's a therapist or a friend or a mediator or someone in your church. Reach out and just know that, every act of kindness that we do for our brother and sister human beings actually helps make a more peaceful world.
100%, very, very well put. And everyone, please take heed to everything we said tonight. Phyllis has been practicing this for a long time, a lot longer than any of us can think about it. A lot of us, our closest reaction to this is actually going to get help and learning tips and tricks along the way. This was great advice from Phyllis tonight and a great conversation. Phyllis, I can't thank you enough for coming on tonight and spending the last 40-something minutes with us and giving some great information.
Well, thank you so much for having me. You're wonderful. You're a great host. I know you have a great audience, and I'm just really honored to be here and share with you what is really passionate for me.
We appreciate you. Have a good night, Phyllis.
You too. Thank you.
In October 2019, Arlington, Texas was chosen to be the home of a new national museum, unlike any other.
I didn't know if you want.
In October 2019, Arlington, Texas was chosen to be the home of a new national museum.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of it. Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the MisFit Nation. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all of our past episodes and get some of that great MisFit Nation gear. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling. Because we are MisFit Nation. MisFit Nation. MisFit Nation.